Hey, good evening, everybody. I was in a position to start at 7 o'clock, and I am sick, as you can probably hear. Um, but I actually would feel very bad if I didn't do a Phantom Brigade stream, particularly with I don't know, just it's reasonably new in the new campaign, and I know some people have really been looking forward to seeing this. So, um, where I can, I want to try and keep people happy. Um, I am really resisting the urge to just shift my streaming schedule an hour because I know for the last while I really have been basically starting at 8. The catch is that each time I do a 3-hour stream starting at 8, um, I go an hour past the time that I plan on going to bed. My Mondays and Wednesdays are incredibly tight as far as the schedule goes based off of the commute that I have. So the cost for that very often is a lack of sleep. Now, work has been pretty understanding as far as when I come in. I tend to be the last one in the office anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, just to shift that a little bit. But the thing is I don't want to be banking on that, right? Especially because I have been trying to get a more consistent bedtime and as a consequence, a more consistent schedule. So with all of that in mind, I'm still going to try and stay the course, or at the very least bring it back to what it was before. I'm going to do my best to do the full 3 hours, but again, my usual deal is that it's technical problems or sickness that stop me from doing a regular stream, and I certainly am at the sickness part. Although, of course, last week we also didn't do Phantom Brigade because of the local game dev meetup, so we'll do our best. Now, I believe we have already liberated this province. We can probably take on the equipment convoy. I think it might actually just vanish if it goes into a... I think it vanishes if it goes into a city, but we might as well pick up some extra goodies. Oh, nope, it's gone. Okay. So, I have a few options here. So we can go to Firland, Vremel, Belkin. So in some of the earlier updates, they got rid of the sort of the Hey, Oswin and Camerooni, very good to see both of you. Again, I apologize for the quality. I am sick, but I really did want to. I really did want to stream, even if I'm not feeling 100%. You know what? Before I do any of this, I think we should get some liquid fix at the resupply point. But let me take a quick minute here and tell you all about... I would kind of have preferred to get an early bedtime, Osman. I think I might be a little bit better. Well, it's tough, actually. So, like, I felt really rough yesterday morning, but I kind of powered through it. Excuse me. Whereas now I'm actually feeling kind of crummy. And it's, of course, because I'm, like, trying to push through it as opposed to, like, just getting better. But we'll see where tomorrow goes. We actually had a flash freeze today. So the high today was 14 degrees Celsius, and I do apologize. I know I'm not using the units of our neighbors to the south. But yeah, so the high today was 14. It is now currently -3. And by midnight, well, actually, you know what? Let's just say by the time the stream is done, the forecast says it'll be -11. So, basically almost like multiplying by 1 in terms of the weather. And it's going to be brutally cold tomorrow, but apparently for the weekend it'll warm up a little bit. Anyways, for all of you who are here, and hopefully we'll maybe do this a little bit later, Oswald Meow is somebody who, first of all, was somebody who wrote very nice things about the broadcast. But I have had the pleasure of being able to watch their stream, as well as chat both on broadcast and off broadcast. they're a very interesting person, a very thoughtful person, and they're actually quite an entertaining streamer. So currently she's been playing Disco Elysium, but I also got a chance to see Helldivers 2, which was a lot of fun to watch. And again, it's I kind of like to hope this for myself. I think I'm probably best with strategy games, but the hope really is that you watch someone because of their their characteristics as a person, what they bring to the experience. And certainly Oswins is a channel I've been quite happy to catch a couple of times lately, because I don't watch that much Twitch, but I feel like I've been watching a little bit more lately because I've seen some quite good streamers. Oh, sorry, just one second. Okay, let's get that liquid fix. So for those of you who have not played Phantom Brigade before, the repairs that we've been doing on our units are not free. So there's a liquid fix attribute or resource that you have. Now it's a renewable resource, but you do need time to be able to repair it. So this is one of the things that stops you from just running in and sort of having the brigade pulverized in the name of achieving your objective. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, here we go. Let's see. We'll start with the rest and resupply. Now I can speed this up, but it's probably I'll explain before we speed things up. So basically, in most mech games, I think this is largely because of BattleTech, but I mean honestly, BattleTech is a really, really good series. So, but in BattleTech, very often you will play sort of a mercenary group, and so part of the job is not just making money, but you want to improve your margins, right? So if you can achieve an objective by using less ammo or taking less damage to your mechs, that is going to be better for the bottom line than if you just sort of run in and you lose, half of your lance achieving the objective. In fact, some of the more interesting mech games lately have given you the option of withdrawing. And, there will sometimes be reputational penalties for withdrawing too early. And sometimes there will be, sort of like a valid, retreat, which is that, this is the interesting problem, right? Like, you can't always just say, well, these soldiers lost the battle, so they suck and we're not going to pay them. Like, sometimes you do actually need to, do the, or you need to acknowledge that these are uncertain outcomes. But what Phantom Brigade has done, so first of all, I think it's pretty clear that it would be inappropriate to do a mercenary group in this game, which is about sort of the liberation of the homeland. But on top of that, too, you can sort of say, well, you still need money for equipment and so on and so forth. But in this case here, like, the liquid fix accomplishes the same thing. So the scrap that you want is so that you can improve your capabilities. And the liquid fix is just a nice way of reducing all of the complexity, which is usually handled through money, into this one resource. And it's a science fiction game, right? So like liquid fix is just the, it's the MacGuffin. You don't need to explain it that much. All right. Nature's Gift. You're prepared to set off on your next mission after a short rest stop, but for one problem. One of your newest pilots is still MIA. Can't find him up here either, a mechanic calls down from the control room. You cast your gaze around the mech bay, receiving shrugs and shaking heads from those present. Look out there, a scout calls, pointing through the doors. Your missing pilot wanders out of the trees, a stuffed rucksack in his hands. You don't have time to launch into your prepared response when he arrives because the crew crowds around like rowdy children. The pilot doles out handfuls of fresh-picked raspberries, shooting you an apologetic look over his crewmate's shoulders. So extended rest and indulge. You admire the jewel red berries, a simple joy amid war. Liquid Mix is also what System Shock needs to make sure that his throat is feeling okay. Yes. Although I do have a few leftover halls, which we'll probably have to do semi-liquid fix. It reaches its liquid form when I put them in my mouth. And reprimand the pilot. The pilot ducks his head. Won't happen again, boss. We'll be the nice boss. So this is one thing that's kind of interesting, because I did talk about this back when some of this changed in the game, but one thing I have noticed is I don't feel that much of a pressure in terms of time. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a potential morale penalty, where instead I can just wait the 4 hours, which I'm willing to do. We've already liberated the province, so there isn't really anything to penalize me by doing this other than just sort of sit around and take the extended rest. And I'm trying to think the circumstances under which that would be a hard choice for me. But, I mean, other than trying to keep a chat entertained, but, let's face it, that's already a struggle. Okay, I'm also going to recruit some pilots. This is one of the reasons I was okay with the 4-hour wait, because we're going to be doing a few of these. So we already have 4 pilots, but in case some of them get shaken up by some of the events, I think it would be good for us to get some replacements. You know, just hose out the cockpit, bring in a new one. And like I said, because I'm in a situation where I was willing to spend the 4 hours to indulge the pilot with his berry picking. Oh, nope. I don't have the supplies for additional pilots, right. But yeah, so because I was willing to take that extra 4 hours for the, excuse me, for the pilot event, it makes sense. You know, what's another 4 hours? You know, the consequences are all the same. I guess there's an achievement for winning early, but I wanna liberate everything. So on we go. So we might want to stop with the overdrive once we cross into the enemy territory. I think I'll run it down here just because we're still trying to scout out. All right, there we go. So that's some kind of a patrol. Don't necessarily want to get too close. A Hawkeye unit. Spotter squad specializing in rapid threat detection. I mean, it's interesting. We might just be able to ambush them and see what happens. Into the fray. The base comes alive with the sound of boots crashing against the floor. In the hangar, an engineer shouts his instructions to the crew, and a pilot rushes to get changed. You keep your eyes trained on the battle console, settling yourself with a deep breath. So it's pretty clear what I was trying to do here, right? I have a spotter unit. I'm not quite equipped to be able to sort of take them, or to give them a merry chase. So what I want to do instead is shorten the distance between them noticing me, or the time rather, between them noticing me and me attacking. So I am going to take a minute here just to see if I can adjust the any of the loadouts. I'm guessing no, but I do notice we have some medium legs. So I don't think it would hurt to take a look at what's available. We'll actually leave the protector for the end. So the Blackbird is kind of tempting because of its heat dissipation, but especially because it's replacing a Nox without that much going for it. I'm not crazy about that overdrive reactor, but let's see what happens if I replace... Ooh, okay. I think I'll settle with the Blackbird. Now, both of these are improvements. These are the better overall. Yeah, okay, it makes everybody happy. I'm trying to decide. I don't think this works because of the heat. Yeah, I think I'm out of options, which is why we need to fight. Good evening, System Chalk. Got the owner in tonight, so you can't stick around. You're getting too many expectations. Completely understand, Cured. I hope you have a good shift. Thank you for stopping by as always. I'm sick anyway, so I'm not going to be that much fun to watch. Oh, I did forget to decorate the Phantom Brigade in the province. We'll do that next province we liberate. That's always my gift to myself. Is I'll style up the Phantom Brigade. But we have been waiting a while to start the fight. Ah, gotcha. What I may do, I do want to get a couple of battles under my belt, but I might take a brief break for some tea. Just like I'm not going to do anything caffeinated, but a mint tea is probably exactly what I need. Yeah, no problem, Kira. I mean, I'll get over it. Part of the problem is just doing streams instead of like resting. We managed to outmaneuver the main force, take out these scouts, and prepare to deal with the rest. But I'll, you know, I won't push myself too hard. We'll make sure that the long-term health of the stream is intact. Okay, so the first thing I want to see is if I can get a good shot. Okay, so it's not ideal. But I do like the idea of being able to start right away with a shot on the bad guys. Now this is probably friendly fire. Yeah. So I do have the option of moving, but perhaps we turn our attention to the tank. Okay, so that's not really... Yeah, okay. So, change my mind. I am going to go after this unit, which means we need a different route for the shield unit. Ooh, hang on. That's not quite going to work either. Okay. That, on the other hand, works quite well. It's the idea here, right? I'm moving, avoiding the sniper shots, dash to make sure that I'm able to avoid, and then we hit them with the shotgun. For the rest of this, I actually don't think dashing's too bad of an idea here. So here we can wait a little bit, and from this point we should be able to... Yeah. So it does cross over into the next turn, which I'm not crazy about, but I think I'm okay with it. The only thing I don't like here is that we are in a little bit of a tight spot with the longbow. Normally I would want this thing running all over the map, but the catch is if I move to the right, then I'm exposed, and if I move to the left, then I expose my allies. I'll give you an example. So if I, let's say, I move around the left here, we'll notice what happens. Right? It goes straight into my allies. So one of the best things I can do with the longbow right now is to draw the fire. I hope so, Oswin. I don't quite know how my game cinematography is going to be tonight, but let's watch the magic. It looks like we did get wind up with the friendly fire. So that's not a bad round. We've almost taken out their primary weapon. Looks like they do have a secondary though, so that is only going to be of limited value to us. Excuse me. Now, if I try the sniper rifle, it's not that effective. So what I want to do now is turn my attention to the tank. And looks like they're focused on... Interesting. I think I kind of have to do a Hail Mary on this no matter what. Okay, it looks like they turned their attention to the machine gunner, so that works for me. What I can do here is we'll wait for the shot to finish. Then I move back a bit. And we basically do the same thing to the tank. Oh. I didn't realize the... Didn't realize those rocks were in the way. Okay, that does complicate things because that doesn't give them a more direct shot. So I think I'm gonna have to offer a second bet. I mean, I could just run over the thing, but... this is not the most exciting, but... gives me a little something to do with the time, at least. Okay. And you know what? I've changed my mind, so we're gonna run this one out, and then we're going to get on the hill and focus on the enemy unit again, even though it's not an ideal attack. Mecha Paladin, how are you doing? I am sick, and I am sorry for that, but you are definitely one of the reasons why I wanted to to stream tonight because that would be terrible for me to advertise Phantom Brigade and then not deliver the goods. This is all your fault! Okay, I am not at all worried about keeping that unit out like this. It might be overkill to put this many units on the enemy like this, but at this point, I think I'm okay throwing a little bit more at the enemy. So we'll see where we are at the end of this turn. We're going to have to deal with the reinforcements anyway, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to clean up some of the enemy tanks. Yeah, so Mecha Paladin, no promises, but if I get a chance to show you one of the boss fights tonight, I'm looking forward to it. The thing is that the boss fights come at the liberation. Like, so it's no longer just a matter of fighting enough battles. At the end, you have to fight a major. You have to fight a major enemy. So again, I don't want to be unrealistic in terms of what I can achieve tonight, but you will have that to look forward to at some point when we do Phantom Brigade. Big proponent of self-care. If you are too sick, then that's 100% okay. No, I totally understand it. If I'm not feeling up to it, because the thing is, like, it's all well and good to say that, you know, I don't miss streams unless I absolutely have to. But the thing is if I do, especially if it's like a track record of crappy streams, that's as bad as just not taking the break. So, you know, I don't want to, you know, I really don't want either extreme in this case here. So I'm okay enough to do a bit of a stream. If I really feel like it's becoming a burden, I might, you know, end a little bit sooner. But I do want to make sure that we can get a little bit done. So, anyways, we've set up the turn again. The focus is on the enemy mech. It's a nice to have, but not a guarantee for the enemy tank. Ideally, we take care of these forces before the reinforcements arrive. But between the two, I would rather deal with a tank than a mech running around. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we're not going to take out their arm, unfortunately. Oh, but we got the concussion. Alright, so we definitely went overkill on the enemy mech then. So we wound up with friendly fire as a result of overdoing it on the enemy mech. Enemy force in sight, take them out, Commander. Okay, so let's see the reinforcements. Got 1 mech and 2 tanks. I think in this case, it's just a matter of getting... I really think this is just a matter of getting everyone into position. So let's move the Protector up. This thing's just straight up dead. Excuse me. And we'll prep for the start of the next turn. So it looks like they're already going after the Protector, which is nice. This is the unit that is intended to absorb all the hits, but let's maybe keep it behind some cover so the enemy can waste their time and everybody else can get into position. Now, my inclination would be to move... The thing I'm worried about is that we may not have the angles to really deliver the goods. I'm going to push this a little bit closer to the edge. Yeah. So that's got a shotgun. That's okay. They both have shotguns. But yeah, the aim on this one here is just to flank. I have a feeling that this enemy tank is going to target this unit, but I'll be able to move them behind the hill. So, not ideal, but it's what we can work with at the start of this turn. It's a nice greeting. Okay, so first thing we want to do is have that sniper rifle do as much damage as possible to the new arrivals. So it looks like they're just staying put. They're going to continue firing on the protector and then not do anything else. That's good for me. So yeah, it looks like everybody's piling on to the longbow. So not ideal in the sense that I do actually want the longbow in the action doing stuff. But as you can see, we have protection here, so I'm okay giving it some time. Now, what we're going to do here is we'll wait for the enemy shots, and then we move up. So the nice thing about this one is that this unit can take some hits. So if it comes down to it, this tank will almost certainly target this unit next turn, also possibly this one. So one small problem I have is if both tanks attack me at the same point, I'm not going to be able to, like, my shield's not that wide. I can't put it in, like, landscape mode. But the thing to remember is that at that point, then I just turn around with my longbow and we take a shot at the enemy there. In fact, what I might do just for a bit of fun, maybe we'll set that up. So I expose myself next turn if this tank decides to attack me instead, but what we're able to do is buy a little more time for the protector. And all that happens while this unit gets into position to deal with this guy. So let's watch it all happen from the enemy's perspective. Okay, looks like it was imperfect in terms of the cover. I forgot there's a lot of time at the start where nothing happens. You missed! That's more like it. Not enough to finish the job, sadly. Okay, good. I was actually... it's fortunate we got the concussion. It was the crash I was originally going for, but... Okay, so looks like they want to put the hurt on the protector again, so that's what our shield is built for. This unit's going to need to finish its attack, so there's not a whole lot to go on here, but it may wind up crashing anyway. So what I want to do with this unit is take out the enemy here. And it looks like we're going to have to chase him down, so... Now, if it's necessary, we'll have the shield up, but I'm actually not. Actually, maybe we do need to wait this out. Okay, I'm gonna have faith that we can take this unit out. This unit, on the other hand, needs to get to a better spot. These really fancy angles. Okay, concussed. And that's it. Just a little disrespect fire in the face. Now this is interesting. So it's saying retreat is possible. Okay, because this unit's technically not done yet. It's going to eject. But obviously we're not going to fire on the unit. Victory, no targets remain, mission successful. Excuse me. Okay, so salvage for that. Battery, uncommon components, an expanded magazine. That's a special edition of the... No. That's something that you can put on your green or higher guns. I think we've always gone for the colored parts, and then... I think I am going to take the shotguns just because we are still looking for improvements for the mech, the protector. And yeah, for the rest of this, we're just going to scrap it. And we'll see what's on our path. Okay, so that's probably a settlement. And that's probably a patrol. So we'll slow things down a little bit just so we can get a read on what's going on. Now the equipment convoy would actually be really nice to hit. So we're going to sneak around the edge for a little bit. Okay, that's not so nice. You only YOLO once. They're pretty close. Into the fray, the base comes alive with the sound of boots crashing against the floor. In the hangar, an engineer shouts his instructions to the crew, and a pilot rushes to get changed. You keep your eyes trained on the battle consoles, settling yourself with a deep breath. So, tank ambush. This enemy convoy is transporting valuable supplies using armored cargo carriers. Ambush the convoy and stop these tanks. Neutralize or evade the escort. Now, if you can just give me a quick second, this isn't going to be a full-on break. I do need to wipe my nose, and I've run out of Kleenex where I'm at, so just give me a minute. I think I'll refill my water while I'm at it. I'm not going to make tea or anything like that, but I'm just going to take a minute, and I will be back for a full encounter. All right. You know what? I also probably shouldn't have, but I got myself another one of them lozenges. I have made absolutely no breakthroughs in microbiology, but Oswin is changing life itself. But hello, Aegis. Oh, sorry, that wasn't directed to me. That was directed to Oswin. I saw how do you do, and then have you, and then did not take the context of seeing that Oswin said hi. The curse of the streamer. I assume everything is about me. Yeah, I think this is the one thing that I've learned. This is me being a little silly about this, but because Oswin is very interesting to talk to, I kind of get the impression that Oswin now does something every day where I'm like, that is possibly the coolest thing I've ever heard. And I have a feeling that because it's a job, it's more like, oh God, I gotta find a new role. I'm not paid enough for this crap. So this is a nice thing about being a bit of an idiot on a lot of subjects, is that, you know, very simple things become very amazing to me. So but then again, like the same thing, I learned this a little bit about work. Like some of the stuff that I would consider to be like absolute like baseline in terms of the economic analysis that I would do. Like I remember a couple of people at work were like, "That's amazing, we should do that." Like so the problem I'm running into is that I'm suggesting like really complicated stuff when it's actually an improvement just to do, you know, a basic. Because like the thing is, it's not that like let me just be clear, I am probably the dumbest person on my team. So like there's a lot of very smart and talented people where I work, but obviously the perspective that you bring is going to be a reflection of both your education and your past jobs. And as it happens, I just happen to be in a particular category that is one that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, probably it is not a natural career curve anyway, but yeah. You're about to find that if you made old cells younger this way. Oh, cool. Do let us know how it goes. Or don't. I mean, sometimes we go to these streams to escape our jobs, but I am certainly very interested in what you do. I'm going to ask a question, and the person in chat who... So I'm going to ask a question that someone in chat will absolutely know why I'm asking the question, and this is not an expectation that they will out themselves unless they want to. But I'm curious among all of you, chat, because we do talk about movies every now and again. Who here has seen an independent film called Primer, which was shot for about $7,000 and has almost a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of film shot to film used? All right. While we answer the mysteries of life, let's see if I can make my showboat even more showy. So the problem here... Well, maybe. I also don't remember what the... I can't remember if it's 28 or 29. I guess I can... What is the best way for me to learn this? Well, if I just get rid of the primary weapon altogether... Maybe it's not heavy enough, though. Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll see if we can make this thing go any faster after some of the other upgrades. But I am reasonably happy with where we're at right now. And Aegis says you're about to move in with your friend. You're at your parents' now, but this friend has almost finished making his house a home. Oh, wonderful. No takers on primer? Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Okay, just want to make sure that there's nothing holding these back. I'm not crazy about the reduction to heat dissipation, but I do like the extra armor. Yeah, why not? Okay, so the big problem here is I don't have enough engines to really do apples to apples comparisons on these things. I think I'm gonna have to settle for just saying, you know what, scrap it all, and I'm happy with what I've got. Shred will lower my weight. The heavy... So it seems to me like the heavy is the better weapon overall, but it does come at the cost of weight. Not crazy about that reactor, so what can we do differently? So let's not worry about barrier regeneration, let's worry more about power. Wow, that really is the best we can do. Well, we can get more punch. Okay, so this is not my ideal crew, but we are going to simplify our loadouts a little bit. I should have checked. Okay. Upper body, I think all of these go. It's a bit of a shame to give up a blue arrow, but we didn't really find a place for any of those, so I'm trying to be a bit more disciplined with my stuff. Now, again, the other subsystems, this is going to be a nightmare to keep track of, but I'll build up a little bit of a collection and then we'll move on to it. Never heard of it. What kind of movie? It is... good question. So... in terms of gaming as well as movies, I don't think indie is a very good genre, right? Because Phantom Brigade is an indie, but so is Stardew Valley, and so is Cultist Simulator, and so is Subnautica. And you can see why each of these would be different experiences that don't necessarily indicate whether or not you would enjoy one or the other. But the funny thing is that Primer actually, like, when I say it's an indie movie, that will actually probably help you a little bit in terms of knowing what it is. It's a science fiction movie that was shot on a shoestring budget. I am somewhat confident with that $7,000 price tag. And it is a story of sort of these two friends who are part of a group of sort of engineers, inventors. They have sort of this little hobby enterprise that they have, and two of them develop a particularly special machine with kind of a capability that does not make a whole lot of sense. And it's this really I can go a little bit further in terms of what it does, but the thing that's interesting about the movie is, first of all, the dialogue is very natural. So these are people who are accustomed to talking about complicated engineering problems, and they do not have any dialogue that is designed to make things easier for you to understand. They talk to each other like normal people talk to each other, which is with a lot of things taken for granted. But in addition to the fact that it is a particularly interesting machine with some fairly heavy implications in terms of what can happen and what does happen, what I think makes the movie very interesting are the characters, and specifically how sort of the friendship develops. Like, to me, the things that are most interesting about the movie are kind of what it says about sort of creativity and ambition and friendship, alongside this, fairly complicated science fiction story about two people who wind up creating something far more significant than they originally thought they would. I've probably done a very poor job of explaining this, Oswin. So if you would like to pick up and sell the movie better. But I'm trying to hold back a little bit too. But yeah, no, it's a really good example of how you can do a lot with a very small cast and set of locations, and yet it tells a very solid science fiction story for a budget that I think a large number of filmmakers would say it is impossible to make a feature film with. What is a feature you would most want to see in a sequel to Phantom? Well, I think there's a lot more development that's going to happen on this game before we start talking about a sequel. I don't know. I mean, I'm quite content with the game as it is. I get the impression that they had a lot more complexity that they wanted to add in terms of the enemy. So I think they... So I like this idea about the individual provinces and the individual units that you run into. Like, there's already variety in terms of the units, but I'd actually be really interested to see how they can sort of flesh out the personalities behind the invading force, the different tactics, and the like some of the stories that would emerge from sort of, oh, this captain, we ran into him and he beat us before, so we really want to come back and get him, like that sort of stuff, because the final battle is actually really neat. So the thing is, I think there's a lot of things that are just lying underneath the surface of the game that could be realized through that, but that would probably be the biggest one. So the next thing I was going to say would be combined arms. I think would be kind of interesting, and it's sort of there already, right? Like, you can take control of allied tanks, I believe. But I actually don't necessarily think it would add as much is one of these things that I think like multiplayer. So I remember, and I will go into the mission after this, but I wanted to say this. So Amplitude Games, I think they still do this under Sega, but they had this interesting system called Games Together. And it was the idea that if you were an early access backer of their games, you would get a certain number of points to sort of like vote on certain certain propositions in terms of the game. So, they'd be developing the game alongside, and then you'd sort of go in and participate in development by sort of casting your vote for certain things. But what I thought was interesting about the point system was that you would earn more points by being a more active member of the community. So essentially, when you do the sorts of things that show that you care and are invested, you will be able to have a greater role in terms of shaping the game through this system. Whereas if, you just bought the game and you didn't participate in the forums and you didn't really follow development, your influence would be less. But I think it was an interesting experiment, and I'm not entirely sold that the games were better as a result of it, because I remember playing Dungeon of the Endless, which I very much enjoyed. And the time came, like, what are the things that you can implement? I don't even remember what the other two options were, but they were kind of really interesting for this sort of dungeon crawler roguelike experience that they were making. And the third option was multiplayer. And I remember having this like really disappointing moment where I thought to myself, and I said, like, these two really cool things are not going to be implemented, because every single time you talk to a player about a single player game, they always say they want multiplayer. Like, that is just a thing about game, like, and I mean, there's the old joke about Reddit thinking implementing multiplayer is easy. It's a very costly thing in terms of time and effort to implement, and not every game needs multiplayer, in my opinion. Like Wolfenstein The New Order, right? What on earth would multiplayer add to that game? It's not to say it's not a good shooter. It's not to say it's not a good game. It's not even to say that multiplayer would not work in a first-person shooter. Clearly it does. But specifically Wolfenstein The New Order, I don't know, how that game could be improved with a multiplayer option. At least Doom, you kind of have the tradition of deathmatch and stuff like that, although I imagine that people are going to Call of Duty if that's what they want. But, at least in the case of Doom, you can kind of have an expectation that's created through that. But yeah, sure enough, like, multiplayer wins by a very large majority. I think the multiplayer wound up being added late because it was difficult to do. And it just, like, it was fine. It was like the base game, except that one of the other player, like, your multiplayer partner would take control of one of the 4 characters rather than you managing the whole team. But, like, very few people played it. It was, like, within the first couple of weeks of that being added to the game, you just see so many people saying, is there anybody doing multiplayer? Is there anybody I can group up with? Just because, and again, it's the real revealed preferences, right? When someone is giving you the idea of multiplayer, it's like, oh, it's going to be so awesome, I can play it with all my friends. And then you actually play the game, it's like, I actually prefer this single player. So that's one of the reasons why I wasn't crazy about the games together system, is that, like, Henry Ford never actually said this, but there's the old anecdote about Henry Ford saying, if I asked the customer what they want, they would have said, like, a faster horse that ate less. But there is something to be said for that, right? Like, you do sometimes require someone with a vision to say what you need or what you really want. The designer's role is different from the consumer's role. But yeah, anyways, that's a long option here. I do think the idea of multiplayer co-op is interesting. I can see it working in the sense of like maybe somebody taking over something like the Home Guard units or something like that. But I imagine that trying to coordinate the actions between the two games, because it's all, non-deterministic, right? Quality multiplayer, like a co-op campaign. No, like, so this is the thing, right? Actually, I can see if the strategic layer were to be fleshed out a little bit, I could actually see how a multiplayer across a strategic layer might be quite interesting. But yeah, I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to spend so much time, like, crapping on this this subject that you like. And I mean, again, obviously, I'm kind of sandbagging the proposition, because, like, if I assume poor multiplayer, well, that's, like, nobody wants poor anything added. But yeah, that was my rant. But the other thing is, I give that story less to focus on the multiplayer side, but actually more to focus on the fact that there is a side of me, like, even back in working in movies, like, there is a side of me that likes to entertain. And every once in a while I have had ideas for games and I've jotted them out. And I've even, like, for a couple of them, I've sat down and thought about how I would implement them. But the thing is that it's not clear at all to me that I am a designer. And so the biggest thing is that I would be lying if I said I didn't have some thoughts, but those thoughts are probably not related to Phantom Brigade. I actually think Brace Yourself have a really good idea about what makes this game good. So I'm not entirely sure I'm equipped to answer that, even though I know it is a question about my own tastes. I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm not super fun as a sick broadcaster. Helldivers too. Well, in Canada, because we're polite, we call it heck divers too. The convoy is approaching quickly. Sorry. Prioritize cargo units once they arrive. The guards will never know. The convoy is approaching quickly. Prioritize the cargo units once they arrive. The guards will try to stop you. Stay focused. I also really like this song. Okay, here's the deal. I don't know when I'm going to pick up Helldivers. I did actually, so I think my transfer from my old job to my new one went through. So I did notice that I got some money from my vacation time that I had to cash out. It would be wrong. I couldn't call him up and ask him for a favor. But I have had the pleasure of meeting Riley Koenig and a number of the other people at... well, Riley isn't actually at Brace Yourself. He's a contractor. But I have met a number of people at Brace Yourself, and they are every bit as cool and talented and just interesting as their game suggests they are. Also, just a nice office. So they've definitely treated me very well. So obviously I say nice things about them, but of course one of the reasons I am so enthusiastic is that they, they are who they are, right? You can see it come across through their games. So, so I don't want to, like, this is the thing, right? Like, name dropping is unpleasant, no matter, whether it's unintentional or not. I'd like to think that I have my own accomplishments rather than trying to ride the coattails of having had the opportunity to meet interesting people. But that said, it does turn out that the composer Riley Koenig went to the same school I did at the time I was there, but he was in the music faculty pursuing his PhD, and I was in economics. And the only way we wound up meeting each other was through this game and Twitch. So that was kind of fun. But actually, just give me a minute here to, while we are talking about this composer, if you like the music, I believe it is available on all the various streaming services, including YouTube. But if you like Bandcamp, and particularly if you'd like to hear some of his other music, this is the site. So the way Bandcamp works, if you've never checked it out, if you can basically sample the music, you can listen to it ahead of time, and then if it's your kind of thing, then you can buy them. And I do recommend that you do so, because let's face it, it is not easy to make a living as a composer. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity to shill a fellow Canadian's work. Rawmonger says, Heck Diver reminds me of when I was told some Eastern European colleague pizza was illegal in Canada. So, do any of you know the origin of Hawaiian pizza? Rawmonger says, sadly, yes. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I do plan on picking it up at some point, but I am a little spoiled by things like Game Pass. Just because there's like so many good games, and excuse me, uh, I you know, it's hard for me to kind of pick up the next big thing, just because, you know, I have so many other next big things that I've not yet played. So yeah, so strong opinions about the pizza, but Hawaiian pizza is a Canadian invention. They, you know, took the fairly reasonable observation that, you know, sweet and savory, and put those two together, and some people really like it, and some people really don't. But yeah, so in terms of pizza being illegal in Canada, I know some people would wish that was the case. I think we're just going to have to rely on dashing to make this turn work. Yeah, so now for those of you that want a reason to be mad at Canada, there you go. I actually don't mind Hawaiian. It's not like if I have to eat a pizza, I don't go out of my way to get Hawaiian, but I've never actually had a problem eating it. I know some people like think that is just the worst ever, and they might like unfollow the channel off of it, but I think the thing to remember is that I don't have anything even remotely close to a refined palate. So frankly, if I go to a fine dining restaurant where people have like the white napkins over their wrist and things like that, if they're serving hot dogs, I still think that's great. You know, I'm getting food. I'm happy. So, all right, let's commit the turn. We don't have that much to do, other than listen to music, obviously. Oh, I was really hoping the sniper would do a bit more. Not unfollowing, but putting me on a list. Oh, man. I haven't done one of these yet. Now, this is interesting. When they say disable the units carrying cargo, that's a very different task than destroying. Okay, I'm just going to straight up ignore this guy, and we're going to focus on... Oh man, this is absolutely nuts. So I'm thinking maybe what I do here, we throw the shield up and we try running over as many of these tanks as we can. Well, that's no good. For the machine gun, I think we will bring this unit up for some support. Otherwise, we're probably going to wind up overwhelmed. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for stopping by. What is Boston pizza in Greek style? I've never heard of this. All right, let's watch the madness unfold. So we want to watch two things. One, this, and then we want to see the shield bearer coming in to bury these guys. Okay, that counts as disabling, turns out. I don't need to worry about protecting the cargo.